And we're back at it once again here with the World Championship Series Austin as we move forward into the night. Ladies and gentlemen, to find out who's going to win our second circuit event of the year, I'm Nathanius, joined once again by Pig and Rotterdam as we get our way into this next series. This one should be a cracker of a series, eh, Pig?
Ah, ahoy, matey. Yeah, I think, that we're looking for some booty. We're following the map to where the good games are.
Oh, yeah.
We've had British Thanius. Now we've got Pirate Thanius leading the ship here.
And we're looking for the X that marks the spot of an amazing match that doesn't go 2-0 as well.
Exactly. I would not mind a couple of close 2-1s. I want to be on the edge of my seat, even though I'm standing. That's how good I want the games to be.
That would be pretty impressive. Rotterdam, do you agree with whatever he just said?
Absolutely. I agree with every single thing that you just said there, Nathanius.
Awesome. So, we got some Terran versus Zerg coming up. We are going to get a glimpse at the best player, arguably, at this tournament. My heart still goes out to Neeb, but Serral up against Clem, who just made his debut, was looking super fresh and played very fresh as well.
It's really cool because there's so much expectation behind Serral here as the player, but all eyes are on Clem right now. And we're saying, how can he do against the established beast, against the guy who, how did Neeb say it earlier today? He said, well, Serral's the guy and he's kind of starting to live up to it. People have all been saying, look, Serral's living up to the hype. He's the monster of Europe. He's won so many challenges in the last year and a half now. He started to win tournaments. Is he going to be the guy who wins 3-4 championships this year? This is the moment where we start to find that out.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I mean, there's a reason why we praise him that much. And even the fans on the internet, there were a lot of haters at first saying, like, he's just a ladder player. And then he started to show up, not just at, your European events, but also Katowice, even last year already. But of course, this year as well. Sorry about that before, Nate. I had a panic attack. I had the feeling that I was messing up with the game because the laptop was messing up a little bit. But now I'm excited for this best of 3 as well. I think it's going to be a very, very, very tough challenge, obviously, for Clem. But Clem did have a couple of those games already, those long, drawn-out games. And if you ask me what is the weakest matchup of Serral, I will still say ZvT, just because there still aren't that many fantastic Terrans that push him to the limit very often. So if you are a Terran player and you suddenly do play fantastic, you can actually drag Serral into waters where he's not in very often.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've seen a lot of professional Terran versus Zerg games. A lot of Zergs that would normally be comfortable in the late game. You run into some weird stuff when the Terrans get out those Liberators and those Ghosts and are using a lot of that snipe ability.
And Clem is good with that composition, actually. I've seen a lot of games where Clem does walk around with like 20+ Ghosts.
He's very comfortable at that stage, and that's something where, I mean, if he gets there, we can talk about it a lot more as well. But the Raven, is not really around as that strong addition to that arsenal. And I do feel like you had the Ghosts, you had the Planetary Fortresses, and you had the Ravens. It was like, all right, I'm feeling good for Clem in that scenario. But I feel like Serral is an absolute god in the late game. If there's one guy who's just going to pick away at you from many angles while slowly kind of getting his creep surrounding your bases, it's Serral. And just the fact of, are you going to make it to that point is also a big question mark. Serral comes into these games and he's a true master of multi-prong. You'll often see him hitting multiple places at once. He times out his attacks. Even if it's a small run by, the main army will posture. It'll distract. He'll pick off a Widow Mine or two, pull back, and the Banelings will slide into the SCVs at the same time. So I think for Clem, it's his multitasking that he's going to be really challenged on. It's his ability to just keep up in the pace with Serral.
I love what Pig said there, because in the previous segment, you guys were talking with each other as well. What makes Serral so good when Ravi was here as well. And I think one of the things that also makes Serral so freaking good is that he learns from his mistakes very quickly. You saw that in WESG. Just at Katowice, he lost 3-0 against Classic in one-sided games. Then suddenly they play against each other again. $20,000 on the line for that single series. And he turns it around. You can see that he learns from his mistakes. But he also lost in that tournament against Maru. Multiple games, went ultra late game, and in some situations it's even felt like if he really would have pushed it, then he maybe could have ended, but he felt like, should I really be afraid of that composition? Should I really be afraid if the game goes that long? Now, of course, the Raven was stronger back then, but the answer was, yes, he has to be afraid. I feel like these days, he's more eager to finish things off because he's like, why would I let them get that far if I can deal more damage earlier on with all the things that Pick just mentioned?
And we'll go into it just a little bit more, but the players are on the stage, ready to be introduced. Mix, ready to bring Clem versus the potential #1 player right now in the WCS circuit.
That is correct, Nathaniel. I am so excited for this next upcoming match as it is a true David versus Goliath story. We have the youngest player in the WCS going up against the current reigning WCS champion. Please welcome up on stage. It is Clem and Serral.
Quite the story indeed. Clem, he's getting a little bit more than he bargained for maybe here. He's going to play his first 2 matches in a row on the big stage now that we've made it to the group stage number 3 against a player whom he stated earlier respects to be a very difficult opponent in Serral. He is #1 WCS points. He won in Leipzig, and many are picking him to be the contender to take it all again here in Austin.
What is nice though for Clem is that he's now playing 2 games in a row at the same setup. That's always a good feeling, especially if you won your previous series. He started to get used, because you saw him before. He was fixing the desk a little bit, you know, chair a little bit higher, a little bit lower. You mess around with the screen. It's always nice to play your next series in the same spot as you played your previous series when you just won it 2-0 and you really felt on point.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. There's something about being able to just keep the games rolling, and often we see pro gamers say, I want to just play game after game and get it all kind of done in a nice tight package. So of course, as these players, they've been, you know, dealing with a few different delays and things today, but how they maintain that condition is being good. And so far, Clem hasn't really looked phased. I feel like he's just kind of taking it all in stride, and he's got that hype factor behind him.
Yeah, he's invigorated here playing on this stage, proving himself in an awesome way with those very clean, very good games that he played earlier. Of course, this is going to be the biggest challenge he'll have ever done.
This would be
playing
one
on
out
the
of a
main
story.
stage, and an upset here would be the craziest thing.
Yeah.
You know, not to go full tasteless, but if not one of the craziest things we've ever seen in WCS.
Yeah, I mean, I won't quite eat my shoe if he wins, but like, I think it'd definitely be a huge thing, right? We would see a lot of excitement out there, and I think Serral, though, you know, my heart says it would be cool if Clem can snatch at least a map here or even upset, but my head says this guy here, look at the stare. Look into those eyes. Can you look at those eyes and tell me he's going to drop this series? Can you?
1 versus 79, I like that actually. However, if we think back of what happened last year, right, with Dario, where he kept running in against Neep, and for some reason, even though Neep won all the tournaments, Neep would somehow not win his group, so he would play against the TLO again. Did I say Serral before? I meant TLO, of course. He would play against TLO again and decide his match. Now TLO just on stage said like, well, I'm probably going to get Serral because now Serral is the best player. He did get Serral. Now if history would repeat itself, Serral would drop this series and
If
play.
Serral loses this match, TLO's like,
I think TLO might just retire on the
Not like
spot.
this.
He's like, I'm done. I'm freaking done with all these tournaments. Now I've got to decide this match against Serral if he would take out our Chinese protos. Gesture.
yeah, that few things sound more terrifying than having to play against Serral twice in the same group. Of course, we'll hear your feedback already, the initial poll results in favor of Serral. I think it makes a lot of sense to put Serral as your horse in this race, as he has been so good for so long and really living up to the hype.
I don't see any player that would be a favorite in a straight-up match against Serral. Like, it's obviously not set in stone that Serral wins this tournament because it's always hard. And that's why it's remarkable what Neep did last year, winning 3 out of 4. And I think especially Montreal was the crowning achievement where he was absolutely untouchable. Serral is the overwhelming favorite here, but it doesn't mean that, you know, it's still 1 versus 79. Like the graphic says, there's so many people who could potentially take him out if he slips up once. But yeah, head-to-head, Serral's the favorite against everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a little bit about the people who are the chances. We say, what are the dangers, right? We kind of think of Serral walking through the minefield of WCS Austin here. And it's kind of like, oh, the special's there, maybe a Killazur. Clem, it's like, we're kind of like, well, he's one of the Terrans, and that's what we keep talking about is Serral's weakness. And I've got to use quotation marks there.
If you can really call it that.
It's like, yeah, you know, these guys still aren't looking forward to fighting against him, that's for sure. But he's got, you know, this is your best shot, is Terran versus Zerg versus Serral. People say because he trains on the EU ladder. He has a smaller pool. He doesn't have those 50 really good Korean Terran players that seem to be playing the ladder.
Faceless
you know?
Korean barcode Terrans that just wreck everybody all day long.
The guys who don't even show up to the GSL qualifiers, but they're like still there on ladder just destroying everybody. You're like, who are these guys? Like, does Innovation have 30 accounts on ladder? I don't know.
At the halfway dungeon bosses, it's like, we don't show up at the end of the game, but we are there. And that's that's one of those things that I think is really interesting. We always talk about it in the foreign scene, is that the Terran players have generally not been as strong, although we do have those big contenders like Special, like Kelazur, and, you know, also players like Masa, but it's very difficult to see them actually beat the top players and actually get a championship.
Yeah, the European Terrans are really stepping up, though. I feel that Utermo was very strong 2015, 2016. I feel 2017 wasn't really his year, but I think in 2018, Utermo has come out in full force again. I mean, he made it to the final of WCS EU Challenger. I think that was a fantastic result. Hero Marine is playing better than he's done in a very long time. He's potentially even on track of securing a top 8, top 10 ranking when it comes to WCS points. That's fantastic. Soul is that young Terran player, besides Clem, obviously, who was even younger, but Soul's that new, young, and up-and-comer that's knocking on the door and being like, hey, I'm really good as well, guys. So the European Terrans, I feel like they're coming up again. It's been a while, but I feel like finally, and of course you've got guys like Optimus as well, who didn't have a great run here, but he's still good. But especially Soul, Hero Marine, Utermo, and potentially Clem, I feel those are the Euro Terrans that you really look at.
Yeah, hopefully looking to see some good results out of them. As a Terran player myself, I mean, in the non-Korean scene, I'm like, will we ever win another tournament? Well, there's like, well, I mean, outside of, I guess, the last relief that we had was, feels weird to say this, it was a long time ago now, was Uthermal actually winning that Shanghai against Team.
Yeah.
That was that 2 years ago now? Yeah.
That was 2016.
It's
almost
actually 2
years ago
years.
now. It's crazy. It's really funny, like random tangent quickly. I know we're about to hop into, you know, obviously Clem and Serral there, but Scarlet versus Kelazur I've got going on, and I just want to say, I feel like the spirit of no regret is whispering in Scarlet's ear, because the way she's playing this series so far, we'll give it like an update.
Is she bringing the cheddar?
Oh yeah, like I don't know, she's been going through all the different fancy like artisan cheese stores. Like she's trying to kill Kelazur very quickly. So definitely want to give some updates, and we can actually hop in and take a look. She's actually proxied a hatchery outside Kelazur's base.
I thought I saw a Nidus.
And she did it. Yep, she killed him with a Nidus in the previous game. Kelazur was playing so well as well in game number 1. It was so
Update
cool.
your scoreboard, Biggie.
Oh yeah, sorry, my hotkeys weren't working at all before.
Thank you.
Thanks, trying to hit that
Still
tape.
those same pro
She
game
gets the tape with a
excuses.
mile.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I mean, this is cool though, because the advantage with this, rather than the normal one base all in, is you get to take a hatchery behind it, you get to drone up, and she's gonna have creep all over the maps. This is a really bad position for Kelazur, and I mean, it's funny because he was doing so many cool little things right in game number 1. He was kind of like denying her third with his Reaper and the Hellions until 4 minutes. Like, it was not looking great. And then Scarlet just did the Nidus, and he only had Hellions and a Raven and a Viking. And it was like, oh, these are the wrong units for this scenario. And once again, Kelazur caught kind of a little bit off here. And losing the first siege tank, it means it just takes him forever to break out of this contain.
Yeah, Scarlet's able to bust that bunker. And I think at this point, this is as the desperation comes
Look
in.
at that Viking. That Viking is a hero.
That's the Heart of the Storm cinematic Viking. Still dies, though.
Well, the drop is doing something on the other side of the map.
Yeah.
That tank actually got so many shots off. I mean, eventually it will go down. I actually liked it. Is this a hold by
He
Kelazur?
cleaned up damn near everything. Those Ravagers are very low. It's only a handful of Marines. I think he's going to get that
How's the
one
drop
on the
doing?
side.
And managed to take down only 5 drones. The workest around, I guess a few roaches probably popped out with it as well. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely did some...
The Marines are dead with
defense.
Medevac still alive.
If there was like, is that Stim?
No,
No.
not at all. It's just
He's
1-1-1.
just got- yeah,
I mean,
It's
that's
like
the biggest
very
problem,
basic
right?
production.
I would
Yeah.
actually hate this for Kelazur if he would have had Stim and would start researching Combat Shield. Then I actually don't hate this that much, but right now it obviously becomes very difficult to really do something. on the other
Especially
side
with
of map.
the acne map here, man. This is me as a 14-year-old right now. You know, I've got like just
Too
creep-
much information, Pig. Stop it.
There's so much creep. So that's the thing.
My fantasy of you being in a handsome band your whole life is being destroyed right now.
We all go through that awkward phase. For me, it's probably never going to completely end, but we'll get there. That's the problem for Kelazur, though. Even if you break out and this game kind of equalizes a little bit, you basically just end up in this position where the longer it goes, the creep is like 80% across the map because it's connecting from both sides. And the point when the creep touches, it's all over.
I'm impressed that he saved that tank right there, but the other Ravagers are going to keep pushing up. And in your own words, Pig, it may very well just be all ogre as that tank does get picked off. Another one's going to come out, but it's not going to really do a whole lot here. GG Scarlet. I think a lot of people here are hoping to see that awesome performance out of Scarlet.
No regrets clapping it home right now. He's like, yeah,
I told her to do that build.
I take credit for this victory as well.
Have to put the trademark, the watermark on that build.
I mean, Scarlet, of course, did take out Serral back then in Korea. So if you look at players that could potentially take out Serral here in Austin, I mean... I think he always has a good shot.
I love that it's such a thing that we have now in WCS is that some players just clearly stand so much far above everybody else. And last year it was Neeb, where we came, we're like, who can beat Neeb? We're like, well, Specials hit him a few times in the semis and the quarters, but comes kind of close, but not really able to most of the time.
I mean, I did think back of that final we had in Jönköping, which was between Serral and Neeb, and that was the first time where we truly saw Serral make it to the finals. And then even though Neeb won, it was a very good final, it was 4-3, very close all around. And Neeb even said after he won, typical Neeb fashion, obviously, I was like, well, I felt he played way worse. If he would have just played like half as good as he does on the ladder, then I would have probably lost. And it did kind of get to show how good Serral eventually became. But I would kind of love to see a rematch of that final, because I really like the little rivalry. They always have good games. Even though Serral came out victorious the last few times, Serral versus Neeb, it's a really, really, really good matchup.
Yeah, and Neeb has always managed to deliver in his matches in Austin. He's put up a great show for the American crowd every year, actually.
Yeah, made it to the finals 2 years ago, won last year, so...
This is his event. We need to hear those noobs. We got to hear those cheers.
Oh, we're going to get that. I'm sure. I'm sure we'll get that Texas Neeb roar. And with that being said, we all ready to get into that next match. It's going to be Clem versus Serral.
Thank you so much, Nate. I think we're all really excited to see this game happen. We're talking a lot about how good Serral is. Looking to see how good Clem can kind of hold his own versus someone like that.
Yeah, he's going to need to. The pro gamers are funny every time. They're like, all right, what do you think of your chance against Serral? They're like, I don't want to play him.
Yeah.
I don't like my chances at all.
Clem was exactly saying that on the stage with Sue. But all right, we're going to be starting up here in the top right-hand corner of the map. Top of ENCE Esports is Serral. The legend, the god, undisputed.
It's disputed, Dear Dragon.
Is it disputed? And
Quite
who is
literally.
disputed by?
Everyone in the tournament.
Oh.
Including this young man down here in the north-hand side, coming all the way from France. It's Clem.
He's so cute.
He's a cutie. And he can play a hell of a game of StarCraft.
Yeah. I think the rough thing is, if you think about the games or the tournaments that Clem really gets to play in, it's mostly a lot of ladder competition, some of the online tournament and stuff. And that is sort of Serral's terrain. That is where Serral has claimed the highest MMR I think that any player has ever gotten. He's just ridiculous. And I think that's probably where a lot of that lack of confidence comes from Clem, where he's hit Serral, and Serral just probably thrashes him on the ladder.
Yeah, Serral puts up these numbers that are really ridiculous. I mean, a lot of people talk about high MMR, but to get that high MMR, you have to figure at a certain point, you're 200 or 300 points higher than the next guy, which means you're beating them so consistently that you have to win 4, 5, 6 times to 1 just to get more points out of that, because every loss is a lot more points lost as opposed to what you win. And that's what makes it so impressive. So to your point, yeah, I think guys like Clem, who's also at the top of the ladder, and some of these other players, they hit Serral in the comfort of his own home, and they lose 1-5 in these kind of ridiculous numbers. So to then face them at a tournament, you kind of take that with you, where you go, this guy is so dominant.
So one thing that while I absolutely still do want to give a lot of favoritism to Serral here, if you're going to hit Serral, I think it's a lot better to do it in the group stages, because that's where it's a best of 3. That's where you can start maybe getting some good kind of bracket luck. And then when you go into the playoffs, it's more likely Serral's going to be on the opposite side of the bracket or something than you. That's when you don't have to really face him off in maybe a best of 5 or something if he makes it out second in the group somehow.
Yeah, can I see what you're saying? It's interesting, though, because the story of Serral hasn't really yet been flushed out, right? Like, he had a really good showing in Leipzig, but that was one of the first times he's kind of lived up to his hype, and that was even 5-6 months ago at this point in time. So we know he's very good. We know he's in championship form, and we know, I'm not about to sit here and say, well, maybe he's a lot worse. No, it's nothing like that. But how consistent is he? How much of the butterflies are gone? Is he so dominant and so sure of himself that here in Austin, where he had to travel a long ways, he's a little bit less comfortable, can he still put it together and dominate these other really good players?
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking with Euthermal a little bit about that, how they were saying, Euthermal was actually a little bit upset. He was like, people are treating Serral like he is already Neeb from last year. He's like, Neeb has had so much longer of a period of that consistency, and that's what made him impressive. Serral is still in the midst of proving that. So there is still something to be proved here, like you said. From Clem, by the way, we do see pretty quick third CC. We got the 1-1-1 setup. Pretty typical for, I think, for a lot of those European Terran players these days.
Yep, this Overlord just skirting on the edge of getting that kind of final batch of information. It does actually end up seeing the CC, and there's only so much that's possible when you scout that. So Serral with some pretty darn good information here. And the amount of Hellions and Reaper, I believe, that backs us up to show up is very much so, with that third CC, just kind of the poke and harass. Like, if they get a couple of Zerglings, great. They can slow down the creep tumors, wonderful, but they're not really trying to do much else.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's going to be pairing up later on with the Banshee harassment. So if you keep those Hellions alive, keep the Reaper alive, then you poke in with the Banshee at the same time as the Reapers and the Hellions. So Clem going to play a little bit safer, like you said, maybe try and snipe off some of those creep tumors. And in the meanwhile, we do have Serral going for a pretty quick +1 Carapace upgrade.
Yep, just the all-encompassing, nice balancer. You're not going to stay on Lings forever. I mean, that kind of wonky style is not really something you're going to see from Serral. So eventually will be maybe Hydraling Baneling or perhaps Roach Ravager, but I think he tends to go towards the Hydras. The first Banshee, as you pointed out, Ravi, is coming out here. And the nice thing about this is that on a map like this, where the Zerg does want to have, I believe Pig called it the acne map, where you have kind of creep pressing forward and all over the place. The Banshee can do some outright damage, but it really solidifies that shutdown there if they do start to focus on that.
All right, we'll see where the Queens are positioned, as kind of want them to help deal with both the Hellions and the Banshees, but the Banshee's making their way to the main base. There's only one Queen here, but there is that Spore Crawler. That should be enough. Lair Tech on the way, and okay, not gonna get too much done with the Banshee, and the Hellions also get pushed back pretty hard. So Serral really not even getting phased. The creep acne has not been halted at all.
Kind of slams the door on it. That's one of the tough things about playing. I mean, we've seen it over the years with Stefano and Huck and Itra kind of for their periods of time back in the day. But when you're at the top of the game, people give you so much respect as well. I'm not saying that Clem could have done something here. It really isn't the case, but it's an interesting kind of narrative to watch develop too, where these players are like, I'm going to poke with the Banshee. There's a Queen and Spore Crawler. Well, I can't do anything then. I'm done with it, right?
Yeah.
It's very hard to face.
Well, and I feel like that's almost
there.
going right there, where you see there's actually not that much over at that base. Maybe he is able to run in the middle line, kill off some drones, but just says, you know what, I respect Serral enough. I think he'll have his Queens or some Lings over there ready to intercept me. And yeah, you kind of miss out on some opportunities when you over-respect. I don't want to say over-respect your opponent, because Serral deserves respect, but you know, sometimes you do get away with a little bit of greed because of it.
To your point, though, it's funny because he actually had the Lings in there in the perfect position. He had the Queens closing in behind, so I mean, that's the voice in your head where you're like, am I over-respecting him, or is he actually just that good? And the Queens are going to kind of replant down those tumors here. Clem is taking the third behind this, and you know, to Clem's, he hasn't accomplished much with his aggression. We can see right there exactly what he's accomplished, but he also hasn't lost anything.
Yeah, I was kind of oohing and ohing, because I was saying, okay, he's getting the melee upgrade from Serral, and we've been seeing a lot of Zerg players going into mutas lately these days, especially in the Korean scene, but it looks like it is going to be the Hydraling bait you were talking about before. Clem gonna make his way into the main base. Might be able to scout this out. Oh, Serral getting a little link run by into that natural. At the same time, he's gonna have to deal with that drop in the main.
Yep, just Lings here, but a few Banelings. They're not getting close down. So Clem is gonna lose a majority of this force. He's gonna try to run by with these Hellions, but Serral has 8 arms or something going on here, and he's gonna control that as well. I think we didn't get to see what the Ling run by did. It was going after a tank, and it does look like it even killed that tank. So not big economic damage, but if you can keep the tank count low, then the defensibility, but also the offensibility of the Terran really is diminished.
Yeah, and absolutely, in that sense as well, you saw those big Baneling hits inside the main base for Clem. I guarantee you that Ling run by isn't happening. Clem has 100% of his attention there. He doesn't let those Banelings connect, but now you end up seeing another Siege Shank being picked off. The Lings just continuing to flood forward, do some really good damage. He does end up losing a lot of those Lings, but he's got plenty more where that came from, and the hype is coming out soon also.
The Lings get information. They trade out for at least a tank, so no, it's not like the best of trades, but he's always getting something. It's very vintage, almost Nurtue. I think when Nurtue was in the height of his game, he just always got Lings in your base. And it's funny because if it's not getting outright damage done, it's at least forcing your influence on your Terran opponent, where they're like, well, I need to have wall-ins. I need to have stuff left behind. If I'm not on top of it, I could lose.
Oh my God, the 2-2 upgrades for Clem are only just now starting. I guess he got delayed by something. You compare this to Serral, who's now gonna have 2-1 with +2 Carapace and +1. Oh man, the Siege Tank pickoffs have also been huge this game.
That's almost exactly the first 3 tanks have all died. There's the 4th one just now there. Now, to Clem's, you know, in his defense, he's been getting kind of outmaneuvered with a lot of these things, but he's not letting it tip over into game-ending damage or even mortal wounds. He's slammed the door. Sure, he's lost a few tanks. He's losing some Marines, not getting a lot of harass done, but he's hanging in there and give him a fighter's chance.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit worried though, because what Serral is doing, he's not turning it into, I'm just killing you outright right now. He's turning it into all these small advantages that are going to start to add up as the game goes on. So with the upgrade advantage, he's getting up the +1 missile attack upgrade, as well as the +2 melee upgrade. He's getting up his infestation pit, his Hydra upgrades are all completing. And Clem is going to have to deal with all this in about a minute or two, with even Hive going up on now.
Yeah, I feel like the Hydras are going to be where we feel that pain of the tanks that were killed earlier, because you really want to have a decent amount of tanks to try and combat those Hydras. Hydras in a big concave, backed up by Lings and Banelings, and the upgrade advantage you've been pointing out. That is spelling certain doom for a Terran player, but if you have a good tank count number, you can get a good engage, you can splatter it.
Yeah, we do see the Spire coming up, and it's going to be timed around the same time that the Hive finishes up, so we might be seeing just a really quick tech into Greater Spire, getting out those Broodlords, which, hey, a really beautiful scan reveals, and sometimes this is just what you need. You take one really good engagement versus a Zerg player, maybe goes to the Broodlords a little too fast, and things start turning your way a little bit.
Exactly. Second factor, going to try to help shore up the number of tanks that we can see here, and to Ravi's point, if you can kind of hit that timing and just shove up the middle, get a good engage, maybe an uncharacteristic bad engage from Serral, and all of a sudden this game can flip on its head real quick. And that's exactly what he's going to push out and try and do. This creep finally getting pushed back here. A good bit of that count, by the way. Keep that in mind. A lot of times Serral players lose it. Oh, man, this counterattack.
Oh, boy. All these SCVs, all these fresh mules going to be going down as the Banelings crash on forward. Not actually going to go out. Okay, he does go into the Planetary Fortress, snipes it off, and oh, my God, Clem pulls his whole army back and loses a few more of these workers. Really, really well done by Serral, and Clem loses so much time that he needs when the Greater Spire is coming up.
And I love this from Serral. What does he do? He loads up another uppercut of Lings just to go over there and harass. And if he gets the army to pull back another time, then just imagine that damage.
Oh, no.
And he will. It's going to be canceled here, but no.
You just go for it.
Clem knows he's got to do it. He's at max supply. It's now or never. The Greater Spire is just now being built, so if he was ever going to do it, it's going to be now.
Oh, man, but the creep spread does make this difficult because he can't even engage it directly. He has to run away from those Banelings. Oh, okay.
Banelings not getting the connection. Clem's going to shove forward here. More Banelings being morphed.
24 SCVs have gone down from the Ling counterattack, as well as those Banelings from earlier, though. And 31, 32, it's a growing SCV count, dying over by that third. Clem is being forced into an all-in position at this point.
Yeah, he's in the middle of the map. He's committed to this. It's all about that army out there right now. His economy behind this is getting just ransacked. But if he can avoid the Banelings, and when I say avoid them, I mean there's a million. But if he can, it'll be amazing.
Oh, man, this is actually such a funny situation, too. Clem is down in supply, but he's up in army. He maybe has an opportunity. The Banelings are still being made here. Big stim forward. We end up seeing the Vipers throwing down some blinding clouds. Is it going to be enough? He seems to be overrunning the siege tanks, but Clem keeps a lot of these Marines alive on top until then.
Just so many Banelings. They're off creep, but he's just ran out of numbers. The tanks have died behind this. The Marines did what they could, but the connections are just good enough. G is called Serral, able to destroy Clem back at home with the economy and out in the map with a perfect engagement.
Yeah, it was a beautiful dance from Serral where he finds these little opportunities to bust into Clem's economy, take these small little leads, and they just turn those leads into bigger and bigger and bigger leads later on really, really effectively. That's the hardest kind of player I feel like to deal with.
And we just saw the masterclass of, when you say, why is Serral so good? Everything. He was harassing really well. He defended really well. And I look at this last engagement too, where it's so easy to be like, all right, look, I've killed 30 some odd SCVs. I can just A-move here. And even if I don't kill his army, if I do enough damage, I can probably drown him in bodies later. But no, Serral's going to come in from a full concave of all different directions, anchored by queens, and with just a huge number of Banelings, which was the right call, by the way, because that army comp was basically essentially all tanks and Marines. No real Marauders mixed in there. And Serral just kind of dialed it in and had the right composition to counter that. It's just a thing of beauty to watch.
Okay, well, we'll see if Clem can kind of change up his game plan. We had a lot of talk about kind of that super late game that Clem didn't really get to go to. He saw the Broodlords coming out and he said, I just need to go now. I've already lost my fourth base so many times. I don't have that opportunity to get up into Ghosts or try and play this into a super late game situation. So maybe he finds maybe another map through the vetoes that they end up going to. I don't know. What do you want to see from Clem differently? It's so hard to pick something.
It's the classic problem with, I mean, not necessarily problem, but I guess challenge of a competitor. But in StarCraft, we have this so beautifully put before us. I mean, when the doors slam that hard on you, you start to think to yourself, do I go to some other thing that I've maybe practiced a little bit of? Do I really change it up and go mech? Do I turtle? Et cetera, et cetera. But oftentimes, you have to just do what got you there. Yes, you're facing Serral. Obviously, if you just play the way you just did, in your head, the math can equate to you're just going to lose again. But Clem was just a couple of decisions away, maybe a better hold of the fourth, and he's right there in that game.
All right, well, spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have our young prodigy, the blue Terran player. He is from Exceed Esports, Clem. And spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, going for the pool first, we have ENCE Esports' Serral.
Face of determination.
Doesn't care how young they are, he will slaughter them all.
Yeah.
That's what that face says. Of course, Clem.
God, he's on top of his game, isn't he?
Oh, man.
Everything about it. He's going to scout it. He already did the pool early, like you said. He's just... And this is why the man has just a legendary status. Every time you talk to any... There's no European except for, I guess, Euthermal. But even Euthermal says it from a place of respect.
Oh, my God. Okay. No. Are you kidding? Well, he still has the pool first, so he still will have a better defense versus this. But this is actually just hilarious how close he is to that Overlord. This is absurd.
Kind of funny he stopped there. I almost wonder if, well, I mean, it's going to be a bunker crawl towards it, so he's going to know early on enough.
Oh, he sees.
And there he goes.
Okay, there. Yeah. Well, I guess he doesn't necessarily know if there's going to be, if it's a multiple barracks for the Reapers yet, because he hasn't really seen if there's a gas.
The second he sees this, he knows.
Okay. Well, Drone's going to be pulled off the line to help deal with the bunker, and you want to try and intercept those Marines. If you can pick any of them off early, that's awesome, but just setting up the bunker is a huge deal here for Clem. He has his first bunker canceled. SCV's going to try and tank and just buffer for these Marines as much as possible, but the Marines start to take some damage.
And he's going to get on top of the production here.
Okay.
More Lings coming out. He hasn't lost any Lings just yet. He's already picked off, I believe, a Marine or two. Without the bunker, this is a losing equation, though. You can't just do it with these Marines. So he's going to have to start setting this up. But because it was delayed as much as it was, Serral's got some choices. So if he Queens out, they will anchor really well, or he can go for some spine crawlers.
Yeah, sometimes there's a saving grace here. If you just build up a critical number of Marines and you don't really lose any, as he does lose one right there, you could sometimes just overwhelm your opponent, because Marines scale a lot better in numbers than Zerglings, who need the surface area and they kind of get in each other's way. But Serral knows that he's going forward. He doesn't quite get any pickoffs there, though.
Serral being a little bit too aggro with his Lings, I feel. He's just trying to buy time so that Sunken does finish with enough health, and it's actually going to be a huge problem. Second Queen pops out. Third Queen, excuse me, but it's just taking some damage right off the bat. Now, the distance to the bunker becomes a problem, by the way.
Yeah, well, most of the SCVs, all the SCVs have now been picked off, so no closer bunker is going to be coming out. All the Lings going down, though, and the Marines able to get some more damage done on that spine crawl. Are they able to get damage done? It gets damage done, but it's not a whole lot.
Transfusions make me think, it's temporary damage. But this is done. I mean, the thing that Clem can do, and I'm not seeing him build any gas, so I feel like he is going to do it. Try and surprise him with just a shocking number of Marines.
Okay, well, Spine Crawler does get transfused. There's a second one. There might even be a third one available on that bottom Queen, and there it is. GG gets called. Serral takes a dominating 2-0 victory over the young upstart.
And that's what can happen, man. You try something, but Serral's already predicting you're going to do it. Shuts it down even harder than he did game one. And Clem has already got to be thinking of his match probably against TLO. Because against Serral, for a lot of these guys, it's a foregone conclusion. Serral's just that good.
Yeah, there's still the potential that TLO might have lost to Jaishi, but I think he was up in the series the last time I saw, so...
All right, we'll have to see about that later, Fear Dragon. For right now, we've got Smix and Serral on the stage.
Thank you very much, guys. Congratulations, Serral, with a pretty straightforward 2-0. You are moving forward in this tournament now, to no one's surprise. How have you been coming into this tournament? What do you think your condition's been like?
I think my condition has been fine. I have been losing a bit on ladder last couple of weeks, but I'm not too worried about that. I think my shape's pretty good, and yeah.
I think all the other players that have been playing against you would definitely agree with that. Only high praise coming from the other players that I've talked to. But I was looking at the win rate that you've had from all the matches this year, and actually you have a pretty outstanding win rate. It's an 81% win rate. So clearly you're having a fantastic year. What do you think is clicking this year compared to other years where you're just able to dominate like this?
I mean, I guess this was the year that I just found I think I was good already last year, but I really didn't. I think my build order, I didn't have enough build orders, I felt like, and this year I've been adding a bit more. Even this series I did the 6 links already, and that's something I would have probably never done before, so I think that's one of the things that I added, and it has helped a lot.
Well, one thing that I've noticed is that no matter who I talk to, everyone says that you are the player to watch out for. So because of that, do you feel any additional pressure knowing that everyone knows that or considers you to be the best player right now?
Not really. I don't want to think about it too much. I really don't think the same way exactly. I think a lot of people can beat me and maybe are even favored against me, so we'll see what happens.
We'll see indeed. Congratulations again and best of luck in that round of 16. Nathanius, back to you.
Serral showing once again why he is considered numero uno in StarCraft as he takes out our young buck Clem, holding off the cheese and just making the right calls. Flawless macro, flawless decision making. Gentlemen, what more is there to say? Is there anything more to say?
Solid as a rock. Sums it all up, man. He's just, yeah, he looked on point there. Definitely looked like he was still a class above Clem, in that series at least, and he's looking strong going forward. I love the answer there as well. They're like, oh, you know, like, I don't really want to think about it that much. Like, let's avoid that whole dilemma of like starting to kind of get egotistical or overly cocky, which is often one of the problems that can befall a very good player. You've already got a target on your back, right? Everyone's studying your builds. You don't want to get on your high horse at all. And you can tell Serral's just staying very focused, adding builds to his playbook, staying unpredictable.
What I love is how he said in the interview, he's like, well, my condition has been okay, but I've been losing a lot more on the ladder. And in Serral's language, that means I used to be 300 MMR clear of the rank 2, and now it's only like 150, you know? So I'm still rank 1, but
he's falling down hard.
Yeah,
man.
you know, like suddenly I'm actually like not 7.4, I'm 7.25. Like I've never seen MMR that low by myself, but Serral is just amazing. I love the final moments of game number 1, Lost and Found, because Clem did have a big army, and even though the map was covered in creep, you know, I love how Serral takes out the fort base, but he doesn't lose too much that he's in danger of dying. Then immediately counterattacks with a bunch of links to put another cancel on that fort of Clem, and then Clem knows that he's ultra all in and you have to step so deep onto creep. And then I love it when they zoomed all the way out and you just see the swarm coming in from every angle. I think that just truly showcased why Serral is so good. He's just really good at analyzing games and knowing what to do and how to win at the right moment.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this in the back. It was just those Ling run bys constantly just checking him. Like, you cannot sit. I think you were saying it, Pigs. Like, you can't micro against him because he's constantly making you micro at home.
And you know this is a Terran player, Nate, right? Like, there's so many things that need to be microed, and a Terran player's like comfort zone is like, I'm gonna hit here and then here and then here, and you've got this like staged out order of what you control. And then it's like, no, Serral has lings in your third and lings in your natural at the same time. And you're like, oh, what do I look at? I can't look at 4 places
If you look at your
once.
main army, you lose 28 SCVs in the blink of an eye. So you have to
if you look at your SCVs, you ain't splitting your Marines.
Exactly.
So.
It's so rough.
We do have our next match that we are going to be bringing up. It will be Showtime versus Kelzer, a TVP for the ages. Gentlemen, quick thoughts on this before we go to break.
That's the Deciders match, and that's that match that we mentioned before, where really we expected big things of Showtime in 2017, and at Austin last year it wasn't too bad. He lost against Neep, if I recall correctly, in a quarterfinal PvP. It's like, well, I mean, that could happen, right? Neep won the entire tournament. But then in Yon Chopping is where it went wrong, where he lost against Kalazur. You even mentioned that game on Sequence server. He had everything going for himself, but so that's a really big series. Scarlet won that group, by the way, worth mentioning. That's a very strong performance by Scarlet, because that group also had Harstem in it. So Harstem, unfortunately for me and all the other Protoss fans out there, is already eliminated, but we still have Showtime versus Kelazur to decide who's going to finish runner-up in that group after Scarlet.
Should be our closest series, I'll say. Maybe we'll get that 2-1 we've been dreaming of on the main stage. The next match coming up, Showtime versus Kelazur. You're watching the World Championship Series.
Dad, I'm getting wrecked. Can't I buy